Welcome to Trust Talks with BBB Serving CT. I'm Kristen Johnson. In business, trust talks, and BBB's mission is to enhance marketplace trust. In each one of our episodes, we hope to give you a better understanding of what to expect and what to look out for so you can spend your money wisely and avoid being scammed. Recently, the BBB Institute, the educational arm of Better Business Bureaus, recently released its annual Scam Tracker Risk Report. Today, we're going to highlight some of the riskiest scams, talk about why they're so easy to fall for, and how you can avoid them. We're also going to talk to those who've been targeted by some of these scams. With me today is Michelle Bordeaux. She's the director of BBB Serving CT's Foundation. This is the educational arm of our organization. We also have Becky Brainerd here. She lost money to a home improvement scam, and she's going to tell us about all the headaches that she unfortunately ran into along the way. We have one more guest who we're not showing right now. He's asked that his identity not be revealed. This man was told that tens of thousands of dollars have been stolen from his bank account, when in reality, he ended up putting that money in the hands of a scammer, and he is still fighting to get it back. He'll share his story a little later on. But let's start with Michelle. Michelle, BBB recently released the list of the riskiest scams of 2022. When we talk about risky, we're not talking about just the most popular or common scams, are we?
That's correct. Better Business Bureau really takes a holistic approach when determining the riskiest scams. They base it on certain factors, and we call that the BBB Risk Index. So really what we're looking at is what's one's prevalence or exposure to a scam. So how likely are you to be targeted by that particular scam? We then combine that with susceptibility. What are the odds of losing money when exposed? And then we also need to consider what's the monetary loss. So when we do lose money, what is the magnitude of that loss?
So you combine those three things, and what are you left with? What were the riskiest scams of 2022?
Yeah, so in 2022, the top 5 riskiest scams were coming in at number 1, online purchase scams. And it's been there as number 1 for several years now. Followed by employment scams, which is making a comeback, cryptocurrency scams, home improvement scams, and advanced fee loan scams.
Let's talk a little bit more about the resurgence of employment scams. It seems like more people are being asked to return to the office now, and those who want to remain working from home are really being targeted the most by these scams. Talk a little bit about the different types of work from home scams that we're seeing on the Scam Tracker.
Yeah, absolutely. Employment scams have definitely, in fact, made a comeback this year. And actually, they've ranked in the top 3 riskiest scams since the risk report was first published in 2016. One example of a work from home employment scam is you've been given an opportunity to work from home, and you have received a check from your employer to purchase equipment for your home office. They've also provided you with the information that you need to connect with their supplier. So what they want you to do is they want you to transfer or wire that money to an online payment system to follow through with the payment of the products that you need to purchase so you could be successful in your job. But what ends up happening is, and you find out after the fact that you do it, is that the check was fake, which means there wasn't any job to begin with. There's no equipment that's coming your way, and you're now responsible for that loss.
Now you owe the bank all of that money, and your money's in the hands of a scammer.
Absolutely.
I also wanted to ask you about reshipping scams. I understand that's really the most common work from home scam that we see. I know BBB Serving CT did a number of investigations on work from home scams under reshipping here in Connecticut last year.
Yeah, so the way a reshipping scam will work is you are hired by a company where you'll receive items at your house, and you agree to repackage them and ship them to a destination that's provided to you by the warehouse that you are employed by. Once they offer you incentives above and beyond a base salary that's very lucrative. So that it entices you in to want to participate in that job. They also agree to pay for your shipping and packaging costs once you complete the task and put it on the business's dashboard. But as we know, what ends up happening, there's no money that's following. There's no reimbursement. And another thing you really need to look at is you could very well be dealing with stolen or hot items, and that's at your expense.
And what's hard about this one is there's no recourse. Like, you were working towards a paycheck that was never coming. But at the end of the month, you still have bills to pay. You still have rent to pay, mortgage, groceries to buy, and no paycheck.
Correct. And it's not just about time. It's about time. It's not just about the money. There's a lot of time that's wasted.
So where does this information come from? Where are we getting these statistics?
Yeah, so all of the information comes from our scam tracker tool, and that's a consumer prevention and reporting platform that's located at bbb.org/scam tracker. The site is very user-friendly, and this is where you want to go, where you can report a scam, but you can also look up scams or scam types, and that's especially important, especially if you think you're being targeted.
Tell us about some of the other interesting findings.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there is so much data and information to share in the report, but I would like to say that one of the most interesting findings was regarding young people ages 18 to 24. So what we find, and this really wasn't much of a surprise in the data again this year, is that young people tend to fall victim the most to scams. The shift, however, for young adults was the fact that they reported a higher median dollar loss than any other age group. This is up 30% from last year. But in the past, older adults they lost more.
Because they had more money to lose.
Absolutely.
And so let's talk about these online scams, because they were the most popular. They have been throughout the pandemic.
Absolutely. So online purchase scams represented 1/3 of all scams that were reported last year. And of those, 75% of those targeted by online purchase scams lost money.
So a lot of us are falling for online purchase scams.
Yeah.
And has the way scammers target people changed?
It has, but again, I also don't think that this is going to be a surprise to many. Scammers and fraudsters are always looking at ways that they can be opportunistic to reach out to individuals. And so we have reports of scams that were perpetrated by text messages last year increased almost 40%.
I could vouch for that. I definitely got more scammy text messages last year, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, Michelle, thank you very much for your insight. Scams not only involve monetary loss, but there's some non-financial burdens as well. We talked about the loss of time with people working for a job that doesn't exist. There's also the loss of peace of mind, of trust, and then the loss of personal information that can link to identity theft. But certainly the financial burden of these scams is undeniable. While the average loss to scams in Connecticut last year was $572, two types of scams proved most costly, causing the average victim to lose thousands of dollars last year. Those were home improvement and cryptocurrency. Those targeted by home improvement scams lost $7,545 on average, more than any other type of scam in our state. Becky, I want to bring you in now. As I mentioned off the top, you became the victim of a home improvement scam. Well, we say always do your research before you hire someone. And you did, to the extent that this person who ultimately scammed you had already done some work in your home.
Correct.
So tell me a little bit about how you chose him and what you hired him for in the project that he was supposed to be working on.
Okay. So what I did initially is we were expanding our deck. So I went on to they have the sites where you can get handyman, men or workers, electricians, whatever you need. So I went on to one of those. The site specifically said they do background checks. I didn't, because it said that, which I should have. But so anyway, I hired somebody. He did the deck, and he did a really good job with the deck. So then my roof was leaking, and this is kind of where everything started. So he did the deck. I said, okay, you did a good job. I'm gonna have him look at the roof. So he looked at the roof, and there was, the leaking, and it was going down the siding of the house. So we got insurance involved. Well, we got the insurance involved, so he did his estimates. We got everything going, and the insurance approved it all. So they would give checks, as they found the damage. If there was more damage, they'd give more checks. So he started the work. He did do the roof, but he hired another an offshoot to do the roof. So that subcontractor. Sorry. So that got done. The subcontractors did a good job, so he paid them. And then, we were going on to the siding, and then the windows were rotted. So it kind of, from the leakage, it was an overflow of many other things that needed to be done. So he wrote up his stuff for the insurance and the money. So all in all, it ended up being, I think it was about $120,000. He did some of the work, and what he would do is he would come in, do just enough work, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours a day, that he would work. He always had different crew members. So, and I found out later why, but he always would have different crew members coming in. And some of them, when he first initially had them come out, you could tell they were professionals. So the ceiling needed to be done. And they started it off good. And then I don't know if he had to pay them too much money or what, but they wouldn't come back the next day. So he would come back the next day with his partner or, whatever. And they would pretend that they were going to do work. They'd stay there, chit chat, and then they'd leave. He even went as far as to one time he was up in the attic because of the roof and the floorboards. And I now think it's fake, but he ended up falling down, saying he hurt his back, was up in the attic, crying, excruciating pain. And it wasn't true. He just didn't want to finish the work. So this went on for weeks, as far as what he was doing. And like I said, he would do just enough to get by. So I said, okay, so he's going to do this, he's going to come back, give him the benefit of the doubt. So then as it got to the end of the work not being done, my house was in shambles constantly. All the stuff from the attic was down, downstairs because he had to do that. And the ceilings weren't done. The siding was off of my house. So the weather was getting into, everything inside the house. So we did that. And then it got to the point where I kind of involved my husband more at this point too, just because, and he got, we got to the point where, because he wouldn't get permits either. He wouldn't lift the permits to get the stuff done. So my husband said, okay, well, just tell him, don't come back until you get the permits. So he was like, oh, so he got very defensive. It was all text messages. And I just said, okay, well, you got to get the permits or you just can't come back. So he didn't come back because we just couldn't continue on, and again, it took over a month for us to get to this point. So we did that. He had almost all the insurance money. There was the insurance money that he had, and then the insurance company holds some back, until they see that everything's finished. So we paid for everything out of pocket to get everything finished so we could at least get back some of that money. And we did get some of it back, but we spent at least $10,000 probably, and I'm guesstimating out of our pockets just for all the work to be done because it is our home as well. So that's the story in a nutshell, really.
So let's back up.
Okay.
What were some of the red flags you were seeing? I know he said he ordered windows. He was sort of piecemealing the work, right? You said he would start and then.
Correct. Yeah. I would ask him every time he would either come or not come. I would text him or call him if he didn't come, just, did you order the windows yet? I ordered them. They're going to be delivered this day. They weren't delivered, and I'm like, okay, well, and he said he spent the money to order the windows. So I thought he already spent the money anyway, on the windows, but the windows never came. And he would do that with multiple things, the siding for the house. My house has the wood siding, and that's what's best because I'm kind of in the woods. And I don't think he realized how expensive wood siding is. And I'm sure he had plenty of money, but I don't think he wanted to spend that much from the money he got from my insurance on the siding that cost that much money. So he never ordered that, just kept saying continually, oh, I'm going to order it. I ordered it. And then he went as far as to bring a sample of the siding. He said, okay, pick out which siding you want. So it got to that, that point where I believed him because he's bringing siding for me to look at, right? But again, the siding never came.
So he's accepting insurance money, but at the end of the day, you're not seeing the product.
Correct.
And you're not seeing the work progress like you would like to. So at some point you did confront him, like you said, and he just stopped coming. When you brought in other contractors to finish the work, what did they say about what they were seeing?
They were in total disbelief, like I was. I think that, as a professional comes in, they're looking at the work. It's not completed, and the stuff that was completed wasn't completed correctly either, which we found out later too, because we're not contractors. But yeah, they just were in disbelief that somebody would leave us in the mess that they had. I mean, I took pictures, sent them to the insurance company. There was nothing anybody could do.
And this is a Waterbury contractor. If you
Yes.
were to look him up on BBB, you would
Yes.
see that he has an F rating. He's been unresponsive to all of the complaints that we've received. You are not the only one that has complained about this contractor. What do you wish you would have done differently?
One thing that I wish I did is I wish I dug a little bit deeper on the internet. They say what you have on the internet stays, right? They have a foothold forever on you. And there was a lot of stuff that came up. I do wish that I did that. And the site that I went through, it's obviously didn't background check him, or they wouldn't hired him or let anybody hire him. So it's a definite, and it's criminal stuff that was in his background too. So it's kind of scary for me as well with him and or his contractors if they come in and it's a criminal background. You know, what's going to be the ramifications of anything, but.
Okay, very good. How did this experience make you feel? I know you had some red flags, but you did also trust him to a certain extent.
I did. I was angry, but I was more disappointed, I think, that somebody could do that to somebody else. And I felt very disappointed that I believed it. And, you know, and it kind of went on for as long as it did.
And your insurance rate was impacted by this
Yes, huge.
fiasco as well.
Yes, it went up $1,000 for the year, but that's a lot of money for your homeowners to go up.
Something that wasn't even your fault.
Exactly. Yeah, and I showed him pictures and everything, but it just didn't matter.
Well, Becky, thank you for sharing your story. We appreciate it. And I know that this will help educate other people out there and a good reminder to always do your research.
Yes, definitely dig.
That's for sure.
Yes.
Well, Better Business Bureau serving Connecticut received more than 400 scam reports to BBB's Scam Tracker just in our state alone in 2022, nearly 90 more than the previous year. And close to $234,000 was reported lost to scams by Connecticut residents. Online scams and counterfeit products accounted for 37% of the scams reported by Connecticut consumers last year. Just like Michelle was saying, online purchase scams, the most popular scam, both nationwide and here in Connecticut. Phishing scams, which surged during the holidays as imposters tried to steal money and credit card information from consumers just trying to get their packages delivered on time, were the second most common scam here in Connecticut. And employment scams rounded out the top three statewide. The second most expensive scam in Connecticut last year was cryptocurrency scams. Just like the previous year, cryptocurrency scams proved costly to victims whose losses averaged just under $5,000 in 2022. Our final guest was targeted by an imposter scam that became a cryptocurrency scam as well. And he has quite the story to tell. It all started with a warning that popped up on his computer at home. I'd like to ask you now, what happened from there?
Well, my wife turned on the computer to check her mail, and there was a large pop-up screen, allegedly from Apple Computer, saying that our bank accounts had been entered fraudulently, and wanted to know if I had authorized a withdrawal from my savings account to the tune of $28,640 at 4 a.m. the previous morning. That withdrawal was allegedly to a pornographic website. I, of course, told her that that was not, I knew that was not the case. On the screen, there was a phone number that I was instructed to call to talk to Apple technology about the break-in. I was warned on the screen not to shut down the computer or to turn off the screen, because that would result in something bad happening to my bank. So with a heavy heart, I dialed the phone number. A woman answered, purporting to be from Apple Computer, and told me about this alleged scam. She said that they had a way of helping me to recover that money that would be working with a fraud specialist at the Bank of America, which is where I do my banking. She then transferred that phone call purportedly to a Bank of America fraud specialist who identified himself as such. And then he said he had this plan as to how I could prevent this withdrawal from my savings account. The the idea was that I had to go to a Bank of America branch that I use, and that I had to withdraw a similar amount of money, which would then alert the Bank of America people that there could be a problem and these might be fraudulent withdrawals. They would then contact me, and I could deny that each of those withdrawals was appropriate. So at that point, he gave me a phone number where I could be reached. I hung up, I drove to the Bank of America, and went to the window and told the teller what I needed. He also gave me a phone number to call him back once I was at the bank. So I had cell phone in hand. He's live on the cell phone, giving me minute-by-minute instructions as to what to do. He tells me when I ask the teller for the withdrawal that I am not to tell him the reason, that I'm to tell him that is some family emergency. So when I asked for this amount of money from the teller, and I'm talking about $640, he appropriately was concerned and went to his superior, who then came, interviewed me, and they decided I was of sound mind and that they would agree to the withdrawal. He then said, "We'll cut you a cashier's check." Meanwhile, the scammer on the phone said, "No, no, 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 it's got to be cash." So reluctantly, they counted out $28,640 in cash, $100 bills, and a couple of 20s. At that point, the scammer tells me I've got to go to this small location in Manchester that has a Bitcoin machine, and I have to open a Bitcoin account and then begin to deposit money into the Bitcoin account that I've opened. To open the Bitcoin account, you have to give them your name and then some proof of identity, which is a driver's license number. I went through that, and then once the account was approved, I sat there and put in $15,000 in $100 bills through their little crypto slot, which took about 20 minutes, mind you. 15,000 was the maximum that any one account would take. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, my wife and my adult children are anxious about where I am and what's going on. So on my cell phone, I'm getting innumerable text messages, "Call us at home," or "Text me back, what's going on? I need to know what's going on." The scam artist is aware of these attempts to contact me and tells me, "Don't respond to any of them. These accounts are being monitored and something bad will happen to you and your family if you respond to these." At the second Bank of America facility, my adult children, pretty savvy, and even one of my grandchildren, know that I carry an iPhone with me, and they figured out using Find My iPhone, and they were able to track me down where I was. They called the Manchester Police Department, and 2 officers drove to this new Bank of America. I was still in line, but had not made the withdrawal yet. You know, they obviously came to me and told us about their concern and my family's concern. So, I canceled the request for money, and then we went into a side room awaiting my family members to come. And the Manchester Police Department has a separate officer who is a specialist with dealing with scams. She was on her way. In the meantime, I had hung up with the scammer on my cell phone, and during the time I was talking to the 2 police officers, I had at least 15 or 20 attempts by the scammer to call me back.
What was going on in your mind while you were going through this from start to beginning? When they first contacted you and they told you all this money had been taken out, what went through your mind?
I was scared more than anything else. And then the anger and fear turned to annoyance. And toward the end of this, I really was of a mind that I was probably not being told the truth by a lot of these people, but I was so far into it already, I was afraid that if I emailed my family and told them what was going on, or if I stopped following his instructions, that as he had warned me on the phone, something bad would happen.
What did you think when he told you not to tell the bank the real reason that you were taking all this money?
Again, it was a red flag that went up, and I was too afraid to ignore it.
This is such a prime example of how someone intelligent like yourself could be targeted and fall for a scam, that any one of us could fall for a scam like this. I'm sure if I had told you this story before it happened, you probably wouldn't have believed that you'd fall for something like this, correct?
Yes, very much so.
They're very convincing. Very convincing. So what do you think was the biggest non-financial impact on you? You know, I talked earlier about the different burdens, the loss of peace of mind, the loss of trust. What do you think has been the biggest burden on you in the aftermath?
You know, I spent sleepless nights afterwards reliving all my decisions. You know, there's a certain element of loss of faith and trust in humanity.
Michelle, can you give us just some overall tips to keep in mind to avoid scams?
Absolutely. You know, I think we need to remember as consumers, you know, the ball is in our court. You know, we should never feel pressured to make decisions on the spot. And so some of the things that we can do to protect ourselves is we need to do our research. I think we've heard that from our victims today. You always want to check for valid contact information on your own. Don't trust what is being delivered to you. Never click on links. Again, you're going to want to go when you're on a site. You want to make sure that you're protected and that it's a secured site. You want to go directly to the source. If somebody that you do business with is trying to reach out to you, you want to try to contact them directly, right? And so by doing that, go into your own accounts. Don't rely on how you're being vetted. You know, and then if it seems too good to be true, it most likely is.
Michelle, you go out into the community all the time and you share this information. If someone wants to perhaps partner with you and have you come out, or they want to learn a little bit more about what you do, perhaps support what you do through a donation, how can they get in contact with you? Yeah,
absolutely. You're going to want to touch base with me, and I welcome anybody to do so. You're going to want to visit bbb.org/CT. Scroll down the page and you're going to click on BBB Foundation of Connecticut. Once you do that, you're going to have access to see all of the great work that the foundation does, all of our initiatives, a way to contact me directly, as well as support us.
Becky, what is your biggest piece of advice or word of caution for those going into a home improvement project?
I would say just be very aware, do your research, but when you do your research, dig as deep as you can dig, and definitely get reference letters, call the references, and just really, do your diligence, definitely. But I would definitely call references.
And that's what I want to end with today. I want to thank all of our guests for being with us today, for sharing what you've gone through, and hopefully others can take something away from that, and we can stop these scammers in their tracks. As I said, always research before you hire someone. We find that the more research you do, the less likely you are to fall for a scam. And you can do that research at bbb.org. Look at patterns of complaint. Look at how those businesses respond to those complaints. We thank again our guests for being with us today, and we thank you for joining us for Trust Talks. We'll see you next time.